Our next guest knows all about Putin. Mike Pompeo was Secretary of State and CIA Director under Donald Trump and joins us now. Welcome, Mr. Secretary. Thank you for your service to our country. Take us inside that room. What is Putin like? How do these negotiations progress? The media wants immediate gratification. I assume these things take time.
Trey, it's great to be with you. Thanks for giving me the chance to speak with you tonight on this incredibly important topic. This matters to America to get this right. We can't see this Russian aggression as having proven victorious. Look, my guess is in that room, it would have been much like when I was in the room with those two leaders. It's tense. President Trump is charming. Vladimir Putin tries to be even more charming. As a former KGB agent, he is a trained professional at that. He would have gone through all the litany of history and how Ukraine was part of Russia. But as you said in the open, Donald Trump sees through all that. He gets it. It's why he provided Javelin missiles to Ukraine to defend itself in the first administration. Frankly, it's why Vladimir Putin didn't invade Ukraine during Trump 1. I don't know the details of what progress was made. I think we'll hear that and most importantly, see that in the days ahead. But make no mistake about it. I think Donald Trump understands that Ukraine will make the decisions about its real estate and that we can support the Europeans in defending themselves and represent America well by doing so.
Now, Mr. Secretary, Ukraine has already suffered minorly. What do you think President Zelensky's message tomorrow when he meets with President Trump will be? And more importantly, perhaps, what do you think President Trump's advice or message back to Europe will be in terms of maybe seeking peace or better yet, consequences if Russia continues to slow walk the process?
Trey, I think there'll be three things. One, I think he'll tell President Zelensky, look, there's a deal to be had here. Don't look for perfect. Take good enough. Your nation has been through a lot. You can get an outcome here that preserves the independence, political independence, and sovereignty of your country. That President Trump will say he believes that's true. I also agree. I think there's a path to achieve that. Second, I think he'll say to the Europeans, you all made some promises. You were going to spend all this money on your defense. You were going to do the hard work. Now's the time to do the heavy lifting. President Trump said last night, he said that, on Friday night, he said, look, we're prepared to provide American security guarantees, but I am confident he will make sure that Europe is leading in that effort. And then the last piece is I think President Trump gets it. I think he understands Vladimir Putin didn't show up prepared to make all of the concessions that are necessary. More pressure on Russia is likely to follow, not only from the United States, but from the European nations as well.
Mr. Secretary, I'm sure it is not lost on you that Putin was nowhere near the bargaining table until sanctions were placed on India. So there are ways to get Putin's attention, even if it's through secondary sanctions of other countries. What should we be looking for if President Trump does not think sufficient progress is being made? Where should we be looking for these sanctions? I mean, the Russian economy is already not thriving. Where should our viewers be looking to see whether or not there are going to be other consequences for Putin?
Trey, I think the first thing to look at is those secondary sanctions, not only on India, which has fueled the Russian economy by buying cheap crude oil, but by other nations, including China, Chinese banks. I'm confident President Trump will tell them, hey, you guys can't keep funding and underwriting this. Second, I think you'll see President Trump continue to push the Europeans, say, buy more weapons, buy American weapons, and allow the Ukrainians to make sure that they can stop the territorial advances. Every time Putin's army in the field makes 50 yards, 100 yards, a quarter mile, he says, no, this is worth staying at. I think President Trump will do all that is necessary to sell the weaponry to the Ukrainians so that they can, in the end, protect themselves and stop the Russian advances. When the Russian advances cease, the carnage that's been inflicted on the Russian military will prove of no value to Putin, and he'll find a way out of this thing.
Few people, Secretary, have your resume. West Point, House Intel, Secretary of State, CIA Director. What are you going to be looking for next? What is the next sign of how this, is it the meeting tomorrow and what comes out of that? What is somebody like you going to be looking for?
Two things, Trey. One, the meeting tomorrow does matter. Not only will President Zelensky be there, but the other senior European decision makers. So amongst that group, they have the capacity to advance what President Trump was able to achieve in Anchorage. That is, they can begin to shape the ultimate outcome. And I hope that starts with a ceasefire. We'll see if they're able to get to a place where they can do that. Second, we should just watch what's going on the ground. Your point about the fact that Putin wouldn't have conceded what he had until the Europeans got in the game. We should make no mistake, he wouldn't have had this meeting with Joe Biden either. There was no chance of that. And so watch what happens on the ground. Do the Russians begin to set the stage for accepting that they're not going to get any more of Ukraine? They're not going to get any more of Europe. I think we'll start to see that in the days and weeks ahead. And then we'll watch President Trump evaluate whether Putin's done what's necessary to avoid even more pain to the Russian economy.
Secretary Mike Pompeo with a really unique resume and therefore a unique perspective on what we should be looking for in the days and weeks to come. It is always great to see you. Thank you for joining us on a Sunday night.
Thanks, Trey. Great to be with you. So long.
Yes, sir. You take care.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.